Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, September the 17th. And before we say hello to that young man down there in South Texas, George Rodriguez, George, hello.
How you doing?
Just fine. I got a little on this day in history, historical little bit that I want to share with you. It was on this day in 1787 that the delegates at the convention in Philadelphia actually signed or made official the Constitution. Well, it wasn't official that it had to go to the states, but still they voted
They
for it.
signed off on it.
They signed off on it, and it went to the states. And eventually, there was one state that on their license plate they say they were the first one. So I don't remember right now which one it was, but they were supposed to get 9 out of the 13 minimum, and I think they got most of them or all of them. I'm not sure. But anyway, what we now call the Constitution of the United States, 237 years. You know, when you think about that, George, it's pretty remarkable that a document has been pretty much intact. Now, they did, of course, have the amendments added to it.
Well, yeah, the amendments, but it didn't. Yeah. It doesn't change. It didn't change the principles. It didn't change the wording. It didn't change. It didn't change anything other than it was additional.
Right, and the amendments, we're familiar with, of course, the First, the Second Amendment, 10th Amendment, all that kind of stuff, and then they made some amendments after that, of course, for like women voting and having the Senate elected directly by people, stuff like that. Here recently, we've been hearing a lot about the 25th Amendment. We heard a lot about that one, but I think it's remarkable. 237 years that the document is still here as it was originally, signed off by those men. So happy number 237 to the U.S. Constitution. And I say this every year that I talk about this. There is an amazing book that was written, I think, in the 1940s or 50s. There's a lady who wrote a book. I think she was a history teacher, history professor. The name escapes me right now. I should have had the book with me because I always talk about it. The name of the book is Miracle in Philadelphia is the name of the book. And it reads like it doesn't read like a textbook. It kind of reads more like a newspaper article, kind of, how it reads. But it's really nice. And it really talks about what was going on in that convention hall between those, I guess, men at the time. No women at the time, just men. But anyway, I would recommend that book to everybody. Miracle in Philadelphia. So if you get a chance to read it, George, just don't read it when you're driving.
No.
And I know you do a lot of driving, so don't read it when you're driving to do one of your public speeches. All right, George, let's talk a little bit about the big story here in Texas in the last couple of days, and that is Governor Abbott signed an executive order or proclamation declaring this Venezuelan. It's really a multinational gang. It was born in Venezuela, but it's become a multinational criminal operation. And they've designated them as a terrorist organization, of course, giving the governor some additional powers to function. I like it very much. What was your reaction, George?
Yes, definitely. We have been seeing this gang infiltrating the United States little by little, and we have seen them surface very boldly in New York City and in Denver. And now we're seeing them in Dallas. We're seeing them in El Paso. We're seeing them here in San Antonio. And, the problem continues to be that it's like bad poisoned water coming into your lawn. You would think that there would be a way to stop it and divert it or, turn it off. But the Biden administration doesn't seem to have any kind of interest in doing that. And it just continues to come in and come in and come in. And then on top of that, the states and local communities don't get the resources. I had a gentleman from Denver on my show this past week. And he was talking about how the police officers in Denver and in Aurora, where they have really taken up residence, where the Tren de Aragua gang has taken residence, that the police officers are very, very hesitant to get involved because they're not backed. On the contrary, they are easily accused of racial profiling, of being discriminatory, et cetera, et cetera. While the gang, runs rampant.
Right.
And we really, really need to do something much more. As one of the police officers here in San Antonio has explained to me, that when you're dealing with tough guys, the police have got to be tougher.
Right.
And if the police are not tougher than the tough guys, well, the tough guys aren't afraid.
That's right. No, I mean, I was going to say, you're talking about profiling. The criminals can profile, but the police cannot. The criminals can profile a police officer and shoot him, like we just had here recently, where a police officer was sitting in his car and somebody just shot him,
right?
Because he's a police officer. So, no, it is a serious problem. And I was going to say something and then ask you another question, but it's exactly the kind of organization that should be declared a terrorist organization by the president of the United States. I mean, the president should actually declare them a terrorist organization and say, we're going to use all the resources to go after them and basically break their back. I mean, we should be able to break their back, George. No, Noah. Yeah, I just walked in. Hold on. Go ahead. Keep talking, George.
No, and Kamala has said nothing about this whole situation. Nothing about the criminal activities of the gangs. Nothing about Tren de Aragua. Nothing about that. And that's what's really, to me, that's very, very disconcerting, because either she is dumb to it or she doesn't care.
Right. Well, it could be actually a little bit of both. She may not know, who they are. And I say that, I know it sounds astonishing, but she didn't exactly take a big interest in the topic.
Yeah.
That should have been one of the things that she was working on, bringing federal resources to the governors in dealing with this problem. But one of the benefits that we have in Texas is that we have a big enough economy that we can make a commitment like this to battle a problem like this gang, But I'm not sure.
Well,
Mexico can do that.
It's going to have limited impact, though. We've got to be honest and understand that it's going to have limited impact, because we have a lot of communities like in San Antonio, like in Houston, that are dominated by folks that don't believe that it is a problem. Austin doesn't believe that there is a problem. Travis County. So that's going to be a headache there. Right.
And that's where the governor is going to have to put his foot down and simply say, you want any state money, you got to play. We had recently a case here where the city hall, or the city of Dallas, decided that they were going to say that you couldn't bring a gun to the state fair, and basically denying citizens of Texas their rights to have a gun if they're licensed. And the governor stepped in, or the attorney general stepped in, and he won. So you got to do that. You got to break the back of these sanctuary cities, and you do it with money. That's the only way you can do it. But if a President Trump, for example, were to declare them a terrorist organization nationwide, then you could bring a lot more resources into the table. Now, this organization is and tell me what the folks at the border are saying. As I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, this is a little bit different than the cartels. The cartels operate in a variety of businesses. This organization is more, they're just a good old-fashioned street gang, in the sense that they're just, they're in, like they're doing in these apartment complexes in Aurora. They take over an apartment complex and harass people. That's kind of what they do. I don't know how much money they make doing these things, but you can stop them if you gave the local police the green light with the help of, ICE or whatever, to go in and stop them. But as you indicated, some of these jurisdictions are not interested in working with ICE, which is incredible to me, George.
Yeah, the big difference that I have seen in analyzing both of these organizations is that the cartels, their leadership, a lot of their leadership is very well educated, and they understand economics, they understand international business. They're very, very prepared. You're right. These folks, the Tren de Aragua, are nothing but thugs.
Mhm.
And, that makes them dangerous because they're not afraid of anything. They're not afraid of consequences. The cartels will buy people off first, intimidate second, and then get rid of you. But these guys will just get rid of you, period, and that's the end of it.
Right.
And the what I keep hearing from law enforcement folks is the amount of how they're able to recruit very simple-minded, disaffected people very easily and very quickly because they are not sophisticated. The cartels operate almost like an army. You've got captains, you've got lieutenants, you've got people in charge, people that do this, people who do that. Very, very disciplined. These folks are not disciplined at all, and they're dangerous in many, many ways.
Right. Yeah, these guys are just good old fashioned street hoodlums. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like the gangs that, unfortunately can run cities. But if you have an effective police force with the backing of the state, you should be able to deal with these folks.
Yeah.
I mean, if the next president, hopefully Trump, declares them a terrorist organization, it would end fairly quickly, because that would give ICE and the local authorities the
Yep.
resources to deal with. But I'm glad the governor did it. It shows a seriousness
That's right.
that I wish we had more of in the White House, to say the least. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Texas House. As you know, there's going to be a battle for the speaker. And by the way, we had a Democrat lady up here in North Texas who said she's running. I guess anybody can run, right? It's one of those where both sides put up candidates, and sort of like they do it at the U.S. House. I mean, usually the party with the majority wins. But
Right.
what can you tell me about? I mean, who do you think is more likely to end up being the Speaker of the House here in Texas, George?
Well, I think it's wide open once again. There is a real push from conservatives, pro voucher conservatives, to defeat Phelan, Representative Phelan from the Republican from Deep East Texas, to defeat him, who has been the Speaker for the past 3 sessions of the House. And to replace him with somebody that's very much more pro voucher, very much more in line with conservative ideals. Who they can focus on and get behind, I still haven't seen. I am not sure. I'm not sure exactly who they. There's several names that have popped up, but I haven't seen anybody that they can coalesce and say, this is the person that we want, and we're all going to get behind him. That, to me, is a big, big Achilles tendon for the conservatives, the conservative Republicans, because if that happens, then if they don't coalesce behind one person, if they cannot get enough moderate Republicans to get on board, then you're going to have somebody like Phelan come up again and be able to get a certain number of Republicans and all of the Democrats behind him, and that'll be the end of it.
And it's just a majority, right, that he needs.
Yep, that's all he needs
To become the
Just
Speaker.
one extra person.
Yeah, to become the Speaker, all he needs is a majority. I have not seen. I mean, several people have announced that they're running, but the ones that I've seen who announce, in fact, the fact that I don't remember their names tells
you something right there.
Tells you something, because they're not people that I don't think have a lot of influence with the party.
That really is bad. That's really a bad sign for the conservatives for the pro-voucher people, because that means they haven't been able to coalesce behind somebody that is noteworthy that they can push.
Right, and that's going to be a problem. Now, one issue that could be a factor in the next speaker, I'm not sure who it helps, but this whole question of vouchers, I think we now have enough. We now have the numbers based on the elections that we just had, or the primary that we just had. We have the numbers to get vouchers. This is what I understand, that we have enough Republicans to get vouchers. So I would think that the governor would like to really have a speaker who is pro vouchers. I don't
Yes.
believe that Phelan was.
No, Phelan was not. Phelan
Yeah.
was not, and that's why it's so. That's why I keep emphasizing that it's the pro voucher conservative Republicans versus everyone else. And if they cannot get themselves together and get enough people behind a certain candidate for speaker, that will garnish the majority, that will garner the majority, should I say, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to be in trouble again.
Now, you need the speaker to set up a vote for the vouchers, right?
Yes.
Or is
Because
that
what has happened in the past is that he has not moved
right. The issue,
the issue forward, the vote forward. The other thing is that he has the ability to name committee chairman, and so he has in the past. Phelan has appointed Democrats, and many of these Democrats have been in very key positions, like border security, like education, and they've been able to sit on issues that they could not push out, that that were not popular enough to overcome them. They've been able to sit on them, and that's the end of it.
Right, because they're all of a sudden they're getting power, the powers of a majority that they are not. They're not the majority, and yet they get to be the chairman of committee as if they were. And what is Phelan's reason for doing that? Is it a tradition, or is it he just wanted to be a nice guy? I mean, what?
No,
why did he believes. I never really understood the reason.
Two things. Two things that come to mind. Yeah, two things that come to mind is that he is doing a political favor to the Democrats who have elected him, and the Democrats are not. Obviously, the Democratic Party is anti-voucher, so that's one thing. The second thing is that he is that he is a moderate, and he is pro public education, and he has received money and endorsements and funding from from teachers unions, as well as, again, he wants to play the middle of the road. He feels very strongly that he can get things done by being in the middle rather than being on the right, and getting the agenda done. He doesn't. I guess he doesn't believe in an agenda. I'm not sure, but that's the main thing. Is that he owes political favors to the Democrats for being elected.
Right. I guess if my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. If I should always shut off the phone here, but I sorry about that, George. But anyway, so if he was nominating conservative Democrats, then I guess you can work with that. But a lot of them, I mean, the way the Democrat Party is going in Texas, and you see it real well where you live, the Democrat Party is becoming, I mean, in a sense, what we have here is two parties going in opposite directions. There's very few people in the center. And I don't know, I mean, the old-fashioned, Texas Democrats who were, more center left or maybe even center right, and that's gone. Who does that? I mean, so if you're going to nominate a Democrat as chairman of a committee, you're more than likely going to end up nominating a liberal, because that's exactly all there is. That's all there is on the other side.
And there have been. I mean, he has put Democrats in chair positions that were clearly very, very liberal, and didn't bode well for getting any kind of legislation out of the House.
Yeah, but it's amazing how close he came to being defeated, Phelan, that is, in the primary. That was a close vote that they had.
Very.
Let me bring up one last topic, George, and we sure do appreciate your time today. And that's the election between Cruz and Alred. Now that we know that Liz Cheney is supporting Alred, which is that is insane. I don't know what Liz Cheney is doing. I mean, I
talk about a woman scorned. That's the only thing that I can think of.
That's exactly right. I mean, how in the world? I mean, so does she think that Senator Alred would vote for a conservative in the Supreme Court? I mean, do you think that anybody that Alred votes for as a judge or as a Supreme Court justice is going to be popular in Wyoming? I don't think so.
I think all she's doing is throwing kerosene on fire or gasoline on the fire. And I really don't think
right about that.
Yeah,
you're right about that. I mean, there comes a point in time where you can hate. I mean, you can have disagreements with a politician, but at least don't sell out your principles.
No.
And I don't understand how Liz Cheney can vote for Kamala Harris and have Kamala Harris nominate the next Supreme Court justices or whenever we get an opening, if we get one. How is that good for the country or for anything that Liz Cheney has believed over the years, George?
That's right. It is really, really farcical and crazy what she has done. And then you look at the race itself. Colin Alred, I mean, his ads on TV seem to be more and more almost 1950 type ads. The one that he's got out right now, where him and his wife are in the kitchen, and they're talking about kitchen issues. They're talking about the cost of fuel, the cost of living, the cost of food. And the only thing I can think was, well, who caused this?
Right. Yeah. What did you vote for, Alred? I mean, what were some of the things that you voted for that may have contributed to this? Well, the polls that I see continue to show Cruz ahead 7 to 8 points on the average. There's every once in a while a poll comes out, they're 3 points, and then another one comes out that they're 10 points, and it goes back to an average of 7 or 8. I think that's where it's going to be, George, about 7 or 8. It's going to be 53-46 type election, maybe 54%. But, I just don't think Alred has run a good campaign. And if he's setting the table, which I believe he wants to, setting the table for a governor's run in 2026, maybe, but I still don't think he would defeat. I don't know who the Republican nominee is going to be, but let's say it's Dan Patrick. I don't think he would defeat Dan Patrick in
any
the election.
Democrat, Silvio, that runs in Texas is going to have to run with or against their own party at a national level. I mean, there's no two ways around it. And their own party at a national level is something that Texans completely reject. I'm sorry.
That's exactly right. No, I think you're exactly right about that. Well, George, I want to thank you so much for your time. I didn't bring up the Cowboys. We'll pass on them this week.
Please don't do
because that was a brutal game.
But
nevertheless, that was painful to watch. But anyway, as always, thank you for your time. You have a great day. And we look forward to our next time, George.
You got it. Thank you very much.
All right. My pleasure. Our good friend, George Rodriguez. Let's see where I can. Oh, there we go. Our good friend, George Rodriguez from South Texas, talking a little bit about this decision by the governor to name this multinational. It was founded in Venezuela, but it's really become a multinational criminal activity or enterprise. And he's naming them they're called Tren de Aragua. That's the name of the organization. But really, they operate in many countries. It's become a real criminal organization. And he's designated them as a terrorist organization. I think that's a good idea, but they should designate them nationally. The president should designate them nationally as a terrorist organization as well. And I think Trump should consider doing that. We also talked a little bit about the situation with the House Speaker here in Texas. And then finally, the race between Alred and Senator Cruz, Congressman Alred and Senator Cruz. Right now, 7 to 8 points difference. is what the polls are showing in favor of Cruz. Every once in a while, a poll comes out that they're 3 points difference, but those are really outliers. Most of the polls are showing him 7 to 10 points over Congressman Alred. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.